The face at the window. Jake unlocks the front door of his new house, the key scraping loud in the lock as he pushes it open, the hinges groaning faintly against the stillness of the late afternoon. The place sits small and plain, a single story rectangle tucked into a quiet suburban street, its white siding chipped and faded from years of sun and rain, its large windows staring blankly onto a scruffy backyard bordered by a sagging wooden fence. He steps inside, his boots thudding soft against the worn hardwood floor, the air cool and stale, carrying a faint, musty whiff of dust and neglect. Boxes clutter the narrow hallway, piled crooked from the move, their edges creased and taped shut. His life condensed into cardboard stacks. He tosses the keys onto the kitchen counter, a scratched slab of laminate that gleams dully under the harsh buzz of a fluorescent light flickering overhead, and lets out a slow breath, the weight of the day settling heavy into his bones. The backyard stretches beyond the glass, a patchy square of dry grass and tangled weeds, the fence leaning slightly, separating it from the empty lot. Beyond, a flat stretch of dirt and scrub that fades into the distance under a graying sky. He spends the evening unpacking, ripping tape from boxes with a sharp tear, stacking plates and cups into cabinets that creak when open, their hinges rusted and stiff from years of disuse. The living room comes together slow, a sagging couch pushed against one wall, a TV balanced on a shaky stand, its screen dark and reflective, catching the last threads of daylight slipping through the bare windows. He leaves them uncovered, likes the openness, the way the glass frames the yard, a simple view, unbroken by houses or noise, just the quiet expanse of grass and fence. Under the fading sun, night creeps in gradual, the sky deepening from purple to black, stars blinking faint above the horizon, their light weak against the growing dark. He cooks dinner, a pot of pasta simmering on the stove, the steam curling up to fog the kitchen window, the hiss of boiling water a steady hum that fills the space with a small comfort. He eats, leaning against the counter, scrolling his phone, the screen's glow casting soft shadows across his face, the house settling around him with faint creaks and pops, the sound of wood shrinking in the cool night air. Sleep comes easy that first night, the bed familiar from his old place, its frame sturdy but worn, the quilt pulled tight against the chill seeping through the thin walls. He drifts off, the distant chirp of crickets filtering through the glass, a rhythmic pulse that lulls him into a deep, dreamless rest. Hours slip by, the night thick and silent, until something tugs him awake, a sharp prickle at the edge of his senses, cold and insistent. He blinks into the dark, the room swallowed in shadow, the clock on his nightstand glowing red, 3:17 a.m. His breath fogs faintly in the air, though the heat hums low from the vents, a steady drone that should warm the space. He sits up, rubs his eyes, the quilt sliding down to pool around his waist, and glances toward the window beside the bed, its wide frame bare, the glass gleaming faintly under a sliver of moonlight creeping past the fence. A face stares back, pale and still, pressed close to the pane, its eyes wide and empty, lips parted slightly, a thin smear of fog spreading from its mouth across the cold surface. His chest locks tight, breath stuck halfway, his heart thudding loud in the silence, a frantic beat that echoes in his ears. The face doesn't move, doesn't blink, just stares, its skin waxy and pale, features sharp but blurred at the edges, like a memory faded by time. He blinks hard once, twice, and it's gone, the window empty, just the dark yard stretching beyond, the fence a jagged silhouette against the night sky. He exhales, shaky, runs a hand through his hair, his fingers trembling faintly as he grips the strands, tells himself it's a trick of sleep, a phantom conjured by a tired mind in a new place. He lies back, pulls the quilt tight over his shoulders, but his eyes stay fixed on the glass, the moonlight casting faint reflections that twist and shift with every gust outside, playing tricks on his vision. Sleep slips away, the hours dragging slow, the clock stuck on 3:17, its digits glowing and yielding, a stubborn mark against the dark, until dawn creeps in, gray and sluggish, washing the room in a dull, muted haze. Morning brings a fragile clarity, the face fading to a vague unease, a shadow he pushes aside as he brews coffee, the machine gurgling loud in the kitchen, steam rising in lazy curls. He steps outside, checks the yard, the grass crunching dry. Under his boots, the air, crisp and still, carrying no trace of the night's chill. No footprints dent the dirt, No smudges mark the window, just the clean glass gleaming under the weak morning sun, the fence standing silent and steady beyond. He shrugs it off, blames exhaustion, the stress of moving, the way the mind spins, illusions in unfamiliar spaces. The day passes quiet, unpacking, finished, boxes flattened and stacked in the garage. The house taking shape around him, a tentative sense of home settling into its corners. He cooks again, eats at the counter, the TV murmuring low in the background, a news anchor's voice droning soft against the stillness. Night falls once more, the sky darkening fast, the wind picking up outside, rustling the grass beyond the glass with a restless whisper. He lies in bed, scrolling his phone, the screen's light a small shield against the dark pressing in from the yard, its glow casting faint shadows across the walls. Sleep tugs at him, slow and heavy, his eyes drifting shut as the wind howls louder, a mournful sound that weaves into his fading thoughts. He jolts awake, heart pounding, the room cold and still, the clock glowing red, 3:17 a.m. again, unyielding. His breath fogs, sharp and quick, as he turns to the window, dread curling tight in his gut, a cold weight that sinks deep. The face is there, closer now, its nose almost touching the glass, its empty eyes locked on his, lips parted wider, a faint smear of fog spreading thicker across the pane. He scrambles back, the quilt tangling around his legs, his pulse hammering, loud in his ears, a frantic rhythm that drowns the quiet. It doesn't move, doesn't blink, just stares, its features sharper, more defined, the skin stretched thin over hollow cheeks, eyes sunken deep into dark sockets, a grotesque mirror of his own face but older, worn, drained of color and life. He blinks, hard, and it's gone. The window empty once more, the yard dark and silent beyond, the fence a steady line under the moonlight. His hands shake as he grabs his phone, the flashlight beam slicing through the dark, sweeping over the bed, the walls, the glass with a jittery arc. Nothing lingers, no trace remains, just the cold air biting at his skin, the clock still frozen on 3:17, its digits glowing stubborn and bright. He stumbles to the kitchen, checks the clock there, finds it stuck too, the hands locked at 3:17. The second hand, twitching faintly, but trapped, going nowhere. His stomach twists, a sour knot forming deep inside, tightening with each breath, but he shakes it off, tells himself it's coincidence, a glitch in old wiring, the house worn and tired from years of use. He heads outside, the night air sharp against his face, checks the yard again, the grass undisturbed, the fence steady and tall, no sign of anyone climbing over, no ladder marks in the dirt. The window gleams clean, no smudges, no fingerprints, but a faint dampness hangs in the air, a sour whiff of wet earth that wasn't there before, subtle but stubborn, clinging to his nose, his skin, his thoughts. Days blur into a fragile routine. The unpacking done, the house settling into a shaky normalcy, but the face haunts his mind, a splinter lodged deep, sharp and unyielding. He avoids the window, keeps the lights on longer each night, the TV louder, its chatter a frail barrier against the quiet that presses in with the dark. Sleep comes fitful, broken by the prickle of unease, the clock's red glow a constant reminder, burning into his vision even when he closes his eyes. It returns, every night, 3:17 a.m., the face at the window, closer each time, its features sharpening, aging, a warped reflection of his own, staring back with hollow eyes, lips moving faintly. Now, though no sound escapes the glass, he buys a camera, a cheap one, from the store down the street, mounts it on the nightstand, its lens aimed steady at the window, recording through the dark hours. Morning comes, he checks the footage, finds nothing, just the empty yard, the fence. Standing silent, the window gleaming clean under the moonlight, hours of stillness unbroken by any shape, any shadow. He steps outside, inspects the glass, freezes mid-step, scratches mark it, thin and jagged, etched into the outer pane, a cluster of lines too high to reach without climbing, the fence too tall and smooth for anyone to scale without leaving a trace. His chest tightens, breath short and ragged, the damp smell stronger now, curling around him like a fog, thick and sour in his throat. He grabs sandpaper from the garage, scrubs the glass, the rough grit harsh against his palms, but the scratches stay, faint but stubborn, glinting under the sun like fresh wounds. Night falls, the face returns, 3:17 a.m. its lips moving clearer, a whisper seeping through the glass, low and dry, like wind rustling over dead grass. You see me. His heart slams against his ribs, a frantic beat that echoes in his skull. The camera rolling silent beside him, but he doesn't check it. Knows it'll show nothing. The voice a secret kept from the lens, a sound meant only for him. He pulls the blinds shut, heavy fabric dropping with a soft thud, blocking the yard from view. But the whisper cuts through, sharper, closer, pressing against the barrier. You see me, Jake. His name, spoken slow and deliberate, sends a jolt down his spine, cold and electric, a shiver that ripples through his bones. He stumbles back, the room spinning slightly, the air thick with that sour dampness, clinging to his skin, his lungs, his fear, a weight he can't shake. Morning brings no relief, the blinds still drawn, but scratches mark the inner pane now, thin and jagged, mirroring the ones outside, their edges fresh and raw, glinting faintly in the dim light filtering through the fabric. His hands tremble as he checks his things, finds his keys missing, the ones he'd left on the counter the night before, gone without a trace. He searches the house, tearing through cabinets, drawers, under the couch, his fingers fumbling over every surface, but finds nothing, the air growing colder, damper, the smell of wet earth thicker, a presence that coils around him, subtle but unyielding. He steps outside, checks the yard, finds the keys near the fence, half buried in the dirt. Wet and gritty, sand clinging to the metal, glistening faintly under the weak sun. His stomach lurches, a cold wave rolling through his chest, but he grabs them, scrubs them clean in the sink, the water running gray and murky down the drain, locks the door tight behind him, the click of frail comfort against the dread gnawing at his insides. Night falls, the face returns, 3:17 a.m., its whisper louder, pressing through the blinds with a force that rattles the frame. I'm here, Jake. He checks the camera, finds static, the footage corrupted, hours of gray noise where the yard should be, the lens blind to the truth, weeks stretch into a haze, the face a constant shadow over his life, its features aging, sharpening, a grotesque echo of his own, staring back with hollow eyes, lips moving ceaseless, the whisper growing into a drone that fills the dark. You see me, Jake? I'm here. His things vanish, glasses from the table gone by noon, a watch from the nightstand missing by dusk, a photo of him grinning at the beach nowhere to be found, each lost without trace, only to appear in the yard, near the fence, wet and sandy. The damp smell following them inside, seeping into the walls, the floor, the air he breathes. He boards the window, nails hammered deep with frantic swings, wood splintering under the blows, the hammer's weight heavy in his shaking hands. But the whisper seeps through, louder, closer, curling from the walls with a relentless hum. I'm here. Scratches spread inside the boards, across the floor, thin lines curling toward his bed, their edges stinging sharp under his fingertips when he dares to touch them. He stops sleeping, sits up with the lights on, the TV blaring loud, its chatter a desperate shield against the quiet. But the clock stays locked on 3:17, the house cold and damp, the air thick with rot, a stench that clings to his clothes, his skin, his every breath. He runs, crashes at a friend's place across town, a small apartment with a high window. Safe, he thinks, the glass too small for anything to peer through. Night falls, 3:17 a.m. The face stares through the pane, closer, its hollow eyes locked on his, whisper cutting through the silence. You can't leave. He drives away, hours on the highway, the face following, peering through the car's side window, its lips moving faint against the glass, the damp smell filling the cab, choking his lungs. He checks into a motel, locks the door tight, bolts it shut, but the bathroom mirror fogs, scratches inside the glass, his reflection staring back, older, hollow, lips whispering slow, I'm you. He returns home, defeated, the boards intact, the window sealed, but the whisper echoes from the walls, the floor, the ceiling, a chorus that fills his skull. You're mine. Scratches bloom on his arms, thin and jagged, though he hasn't touched a thing, their edges burning sharp against his skin, a pain that grows with each passing night. The weeks drag on, a slow unraveling of his life, the face a constant companion, its whisper a drone that never fades, seeping from every corner of the house, every shadow, every breath he takes. He quits his job, stops answering calls, the phone buzzing unanswered on the counter, its screen glowing faint in the dark. The damp smell grows, thick and sour, a flood that fills the rooms, the walls glistening faintly with moisture that wasn't there before, the air heavy with rot. He boards every window, nails driven deep, wood, groaning under the hammer's force, but the whisper cuts through, louder, closer, a sound that claws at his nerves. I'm here, Jake. Scratches spread, across the boards, the walls, the floor, curling around his bed, climbing the headboard, their edges raw and fresh, a map of lines that grows each night. His things vanish faster, a pen from his pocket, a sock from the laundry, a letter from his desk, each gone without trace, only to appear in the yard, wet and sandy, piled near the fence like offerings, the damp smell trailing them inside. A shadow he can't escape. He stops leaving the house, locks himself in, the blinds drawn tight, the lights on constant, their buzz a frail shield against the dark pressing in from every side. The face finds him, 3:17 a.m. its whisper seeping from the walls, the floor, the ceiling, a relentless hum that fills his skull. You see me, Jake, I'm here. He checks the mirrors, finds them fogged, scratches inside the glass, his reflection. Staring back, older, hollower, lips moving faint in a silent chant. I'm you. He smashes them, glass shattering across the floor, shards glinting under the light, but the reflections stay, hovering in the broken frames, eyes empty, lips whispering. His name. Scratches bloom on his skin, his hands, his arms, his chest, thin and jagged, their edges burning sharp, a pain that grows with each mark, each night, each whisper that cuts through the silence. The final night comes slow, the house cold and still, the air thick with rot, a damp flood that chokes his lungs, his thoughts, his fear. He wakes to silence, the clock dark, its glow extinguished, the room swallowed in shadow, the damp smell, a weight that presses against his chest. He stumbles to the living room, finds the boards gone, the window bare, the glass gleaming clean under the moonlight, the face inside, standing at his couch, its hollow eyes fixed on him, lips moving slow. I'm here, Jake. It steps closer, its breath damp against his face, the smell of wet earth, a flood that drowns the room, its features his own but twisted, aged, drained of life, a grotesque mirror that reflects nothing but decay. He runs, grabs a hammer, swings at the glass, shards flying wide, but the face stays closer, its whisper filling his skull, a scream that tears through his mind. You're me. The mirror falls, crashes to the floor, his reflection standing, tall in the broken frame, eyes empty, lips moving. I'm you. Scratches spread across his hands, his face, his chest, deep and wild, a web of lines that burns sharp, the damp smell, a tide that swallows him whole. He collapses, the face over him, its hollow eyes all he sees, its voice, his own, screaming. Inside his head, a sound that rips through his skull, his bones, his soul. You're gone. The room spins, the walls close in, the damp rot a flood that fills his lungs, his eyes, his mind, a weight that pulls him under, deeper, darker, until nothing remains but the whisper, his whisper, echoing endless in the void. I'm you. I'm you. I'm you. The house trembles, the floor cracks, the windows fog, scratches spreading across every surface, a map of his undoing etched into the wood, the glass, his skin. He fades, the face fading with him, merging, one, a shadow that swallows the light, the sound, the air, leaving nothing behind but the damp rot, a stench that lingers, a mark that stays, a presence that waits. Epilogue. Months pass, the house sits, empty, windows dark, the air heavy with damp rot, a sour flood that seeps into the street, the yard, the fence. A new tenant, Sam, moves in, young and hopeful, the rent cheap, the quiet a draw, his boxes stacked neat in the hall. Night falls, 3:17 a.m., the clock freezes, its digits glowing red, unyielding, a face stares through the glass, pale and still, Jake's now, its hollow eyes locked on Sam, lips moving faint. You see me, Sam, scratches mark the pain, thin and jagged, the damp smell curls inside, thick and sour, the whisper seeping through the walls, the floor, the air. I'm here. The cycle begins anew. The house remembers. The face waits, patient and unyielding, its hollow eyes a promise, a curse, a shadow that grows with each night, each breath, each tenant it claims.